Music. At just 8 years old, Larry first sensed how the world might fracture in hushed tones. No tempest raged that evening, no heated arguments echoed from the kitchen, no broken dishes signaled the unraveling of their family. Rather, it was the quiet that hit him hardest, the quiet between two individuals who had stopped gazing at each other with the old warmth, the quiet of affection gradually morphing into something strange and distant. He recalled perched at the dinner table, idly drawing loops on his dish with a utensil while his mom and dad traded precise, guarded phrases. The arguments had ceased, yet somehow that felt even more painful. For even as a young kid, Larry sensed that a lack of clashes didn't equal harmony. It signaled separation. When they finally shared the news that they'd reside in separate residences, Larry's reality shifted off kilter. He bobbed his head in silence, pretending to grasp it, though he truly didn't. How could any youngster comprehend that those who vowed eternity were now reshaping that vow into distinct paths? Music. And the key point here is that Larry represents far more than a single child. He's emblematic of countless others. Annually, innumerable kids worldwide witness their guardians splitting apart. Though the details vary, the internal landscape for a youngster steering through parental separation often mirrors common threads, feeling echoes, unspoken inquiries, concealed battles. The mental framework of a child from a split family isn't merely a tale of ruin. It's infinitely more intricate, interwoven with endurance, bewilderment, yearning, and a persistent quest for connection. Experts in the mind have extensively examined how separations affect young ones, and the insights run deep. Typically, offspring of separated couples face elevated risks of insecurity, worry, and split allegiances. Yet raw data fails to convey the racing pulse of a kid like Larry, restless in the dark, pondering if he'll need to pick teams or if affection itself carries a shelf life. Let's slip into Larry's perspective briefly. Picture him stuffing his backpack on a Friday night, aware the coming days will pass at his dad's residence. Within that modest pack lies not just assignments and a brush for teeth. It holds the unseen burden of dual realms that scarcely overlap. He ponders, even so early on, he's mastering self-censorship, curbing his happiness to avoid sparking hurt elsewhere. This internal bargaining in a young mind is what mind specialists term allegiance bind. It's the internal pull between cherishing both guardians without restraint and dreading that favoritism toward one could wound the other. In reality, kids seldom voice these emotions. They bear them mutely, like an unseen load bearing down on their slight frames. As the years passed, Larry matured. Reaching 12, he honed the art of gauging the mood's climate in both dwellings. In his mom's space, he moved cautiously, avoiding references to his father unless the air seemed receptive. Over at his dad's, he occasionally amplified his academic successes, aiming to ease the remorse his father appeared to harbor for his inconsistent presence. And this is where the mental layers thicken. Investigations reveal that young ones from divided homes frequently cultivate sharp attunement to feeling signals. They turn into observers, auditors, decoders of tones and pauses. Though this might foster greater compassion and feeling acuity over time, it can also sow roots of constant alertness. Consider maturing under the notion that calm is brittle, that bonds come with strings, that steadiness might dissolve in an instant. It molds not only your view of your caregivers, but your self-perception as well. Yet here's the twist. Numerous offspring of separations evolve into notably tough grown-ups. How so? The Fishers in their early years compelled them to build flexibility. They master handling intricacies, balancing varied truths, embracing opposites without shattering. Take Larry, who turned into the sort of teen able to soothe a companion with surprising insight, drawing from his own encounters with bottled-up sorrow. Nevertheless, toughness doesn't dispel the enduring doubts. Youngsters like Larry frequently grapple with notions of lasting ties. They might question, since my folks couldn't sustain it, can I ever secure something enduring? Such queries don't surface right away. At times they lie latent until early maturity, when Larry faces a beloved across a table and senses an abrupt dread of reliving the past. And still, herein lies mental science's optimism. Evidence indicates that insight can interrupt loops. Offspring raised in split households aren't fated to echo those roots. Actually, plenty, after reflecting on and comprehending their history, devote themselves fervently to forging solid, nurturing connections. They grasp dialogue's worth, they understand quiet's toll, and they recognize that affection, to endure, must be care was fostered, not taken for granted. Yet we shouldn't rush ahead. Instead, let's return to Larry's early years, as that's where the psychological journey really starts. He frequently pondered, quote, It's a typical response. Kids often fault themselves. Experts in child development point out that those under 10 tend to absorb the idea of a breakup as if their own actions sparked it, perhaps due to their naughtiness or quarrels with brothers and sisters, or simply not measuring up. Such ideas lack reason, yet they hurt intensely. Larry held on to this doubt in silence for years, until his teenage phase when he finally shared it with a guidance counselor at school. The advisor offered a straightforward but meaningful insight. Your family didn't shatter because of you. You simply got swept up in a shift beyond your power. That exchange lingered with Larry, since recovery often arises not from dramatic acts, but from another person voicing the reality you couldn't express on your own. What renders this subject so relatable across humanity is its broad appeal. You needn't come from a split household to grasp it. We've all experienced the ache of parting in various forms, the end of a bond with a pal, the dimming of an ambition, or the slow drift from those we cherished. Larry's experience acts as a reflection. It reveals how profoundly kids yearn for bonds and how vulnerable they become when those bonds teeter. Central to this mental framework is a contradiction. Offspring of separated couples bear both scars and savvy. They grasp uncertainty but pursue steadiness with a fervor that sets them apart. They might mature warily, yet that wariness can spark greater awareness of what sustains ties. And doesn't that echo our collective tale? We're molded not just by the affection we gain, but also by what slips away. Larry's evenings could weigh on him. He'd recline in his bed at Dad's residence, gazing upward, questioning whether Mom longed for him. Then, back at Mom's, he'd fret over whether Dad felt isolated in his absence. This subtle sensation of being torn apart, of fitting in all places yet none, ranks among the heaviest emotional loads for a child in such a situation. Still, it might plant the roots of compassion, guiding them to envision others' private thoughts. Research indicates that kids like Larry frequently turn into connectors. They master linking realms that clash. They excel at easing dialogues, easing tensions, fostering harmony in unsteady ground. It's a boon and a burden alike. For while it breeds kindness, it can also instill dread of disputes, perpetually aiming to avert another split. But imagine if this trait, the drive to span gaps, could evolve. What if, rather than merely a mark, it turned into a well of power? This is where the narrative gains depth, since separation imprints a young person without dictating their path. The mental landscape for a child of parted guardians isn't a forecast of ruin. It's a call to toughness, introspection, and reimagining the essence of devotion. And that loops us to Larry. As he entered grown-up life, he bore both hurts and knowledge. Trust proved challenging, sure, but so did discernment. He occasionally dreaded desertion, true, but he also valued the rarity of companionship. Most importantly, he harbored a subdued resolve. If bonds are delicate, then I'll handle them as treasures, not to toss aside. Here's where the true account ignites, for the mindset of youths like Larry goes beyond mere survival. It's about the innovations they forge from it. Larry once murmured to a companion, as if wary of the phrase itself, "I sense I fit everywhere and nowhere." That line sums up the core for countless kids from divided families. They're raised in dual dwellings, but at times it seems they're rooted in none, constantly preparing bags, shifting spots, juggling acts. While grown-ups view it as mere logistics, transfers, collections, timetables, for the young one, it's deeply emblematic. The very notion of home morphs into something fluid. Specialists term it the pressure of split allegiances. It's the pull of fitting into twin settings with clashing norms, atmospheres, or even principles. Larry's dad enforced firm sleep routines. His mom allowed more leeway. Dad favored athletics. Mom promoted books. To cope, Larry turned adaptable, swiftly shifting gears. Outwardly, it built versatility. Inwardly, though, he occasionally queried, "What's my authentic self? Which side is genuine?" This quest for selfhood threads deeply through the experiences of a child from a broken home. For when security fragments, so does one's sense of core. Yet, the intriguing aspect is this. Numerous young ones, via this exact turmoil, cultivate a robust, distinct sense of self. As they mature, these children figure out how to blend insights from each side of their experience, gaining resilience from the differences. Consider this. A kid exposed to dual viewpoints on existence, varied expressions of affection, and contrasting problem-solving methods ends up with a broader perspective. From his dad, Larry absorbed a sense of structure. From his mom, he gained empathy. Initially, it seemed like a clash. Over time, it evolved into harmony. That harmony influenced his grown-up life. Yet the path wasn't smooth. There were periods when Larry avoided relationships entirely. He observed how minor disputes between couples echoed his parents' gradual emotional separation. Occasionally, he'd end things prematurely, not from indifference but from an excessive attachment. Deep down, a quiet voice in his mind urged caution. It's safer to walk away first than risk abandonment. This pattern is widespread. Research indicates that offspring of separated parents tend to exhibit a modest increase in commitment avoidance or trust issues during their early adult years. They crave connection, not the absence of it. They've simply witnessed its vulnerability. Still, as Larry came to grasp, vulnerability doesn't spell doom. A delicate vessel might shatter easily, but it can contain liquid just the same. Affection might be exposed to harm, yet it persists when tended with mindfulness. For Larry, mindfulness started with recognizing habits. He saw that he constantly anticipated dismissal, probing others' tolerance to gauge their endurance. Once aware, he pivoted. He came to see that faith in others isn't rooted in certainties. It's a deliberate embrace of openness amid unknowns. Here, the boundary between mental health and deeper thought blurs. The young one, scarred by shattered vows, often matures into someone who cherishes commitments with greater reverence. But let's expand our view past Larry alone. What do experts actually reveal about kids from split families? Scholars point out potential vulnerabilities alongside unique assets. Among the challenges, temporary dips in school success, elevated risks of worry or insecurity, and hurdles in building lasting bonds. On the positive front, however, they frequently cultivate profound understanding of others, creative conflict resolution, and flexibility. Some even label them as wise beyond their years, having grasped young that reality defies simple binaries. Reflect on this potent idea. Toughness doesn't flourish in ease. It emerges from the fissures, those spots where existence demands adjustment. Larry's fissures honed his ability to truly hear people, detecting pain in their unspoken moments. His childhood quietude had sharpened his ear for the unsaid. Nevertheless, compassion by itself fell short. Eventually, Larry confronted the lingering boy within, the one questioning his role in the fallout. Counseling proved beneficial. Candid talks aided. Above all, the passage of time soothed. With the seasons advancing, Larry uncovered a reality that gradually eased his self-reproach. The split wasn't his narrative. It belonged to two grown-ups grappling with their flaws. He hadn't sparked it. He'd merely observed. This insight proves essential. Those burdened by blame in youth may evolve into overachievers in maturity, forever mending, appeasing, or dodging discord at great expense. But upon realizing they bore no fault for their parents' decisions, liberation follows. And liberation sparks genuineness. In time, Larry found romance. Sure, the familiar anxieties bubbled up again. He fretted over reliving the past, over vows dissolving into quietude. This round, though, he responded differently. Rather than concealing his apprehensions, he voiced them. He shared with his beloved the evenings shuttling between residences, the torn allegiances, the lingering inquiries. And a wondrous shift occurred. Far from fleeing, his partner attuned. In that attentiveness, fresh dynamics took root. This might represent the most profound contribution from divorce's young survivors, candor. They've felt silence's toll, so they prize voicing realities. They've shouldered the burden of dangling threads, so they turn into narrators pursuing resolution. In essence, they illustrate what experts term growth after trauma, the process where adversity, rather than shattering, enriches one's grasp of significance, bonds, and direction. Circle back once more to young Larry in his bed, pondering love's endurance. That inquiry lingers indefinitely. Perhaps it evolves, though. Perhaps it morphs from quote "marfar" to quote "five." And doesn't that echo a universal query? Regardless of whether our guardians remained united or parted, whether our paths were seamless or splintered, we all harbor the desire for devotion alongside the dread of its loss. Larry's journey illustrates how delicacy forges insight. It reminds us that a divorced child's identity stems not from rupture, but from the richness of their comprehension. Indeed, they may grapple with uncertainties. Indeed, they might bear wounds. Yet those same wounds can transform into pathways, leading to compassion, to dedication, to forging the sorts of bonds they once worried could never endure. And perhaps that's the hidden treasure concealed within the hurt. Kids from broken homes frequently mature into grown-ups who grasp a deep truth. Affection isn't assured, but that's precisely what renders it holy. Security isn't vowed, but that's what makes it vital to safeguard. When they opt for love, they enter it fully aware. Not from blind faith, but from deliberate loyalty. So as you reflect on Larry, don't merely envision the young boy at the meal, bewildered by the quiet. Envision the person he grew into, the one who cherishes being there, who hears with true attentiveness, who pledges himself not merely because it's simple, but because he understands the ache of promises dissolving. The inner world of a child with separated parents isn't a sorrowful tale. It's a teaching etched into the soul. It reveals that from separation can emerge harmony. From weakness can arise resilience. From quiet can rise expression. And perhaps, just perhaps, young ones like Larry awaken us all to a reality we occasionally overlook. Affection isn't rooted in flawlessness. It's about selecting it repeatedly, even amid vulnerability. Most of all, when it's vulnerable.